Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to the VET S.O.S network. Remember, you do not have to drown in the sea of transition. You grab that VET S.O.S Lifeline. We are here to help. And today, sitting on the stoop, we're about to get to school. We're stepping into a conversation that goes beyond success, beyond the titles, beyond everything we think that defines us. Because at some point in life, we all will face a question. Who am I really? Our guest today, Mr. Rand Timmerman Esquire, takes us on a journey through a spiritual patches. This is what we're going to be talking about today, people. A path of reflection, transformation, and discovering purpose beyond the noise of the world. This isn't just about spirituality. This is about identity. It's about healing. And it's about awakening. So wherever you are right now, I want you to lean in because this conversation might just meet you exactly where you are. Now let's dive in. Rand, what's going on today? How we doing today?
Good, Kings. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about talking with you.
I'm excited about going over your book. I know people when I shared your book with one of my buddies, he's like, "Man, are you going back to school?" I said, "Look, reading this book is like it is the school of life right here inside your book." So I just want to say thank you for putting this collection together. Definitely the photos, so of the forest of going through there. That's why I actually like. Did you ever get turned around and lost? Because I would have got lost because you went on a. How long was the journey y'all went through the Appalachian? How long was the journey through the forest that y'all did?
The Appalachian Trail starts in Springer Mountain, Georgia, and it goes through 14 states northeast up to Kehadden Mountain in Maine. So it's 2,200 miles, 465,000 feet of elevation changes, 600 miles, or 600 mountains, excuse me, and 300 of them are named. Every state has a bear mountain.
Wow.
And about 3 million people. It's actually the longest footpath trail in the whole world, Kings. It's the longest one,
Wow.
2,200 miles. About 3 million people hike on it every year, some part of it. About 3,000 try to go the whole way, 17% roughly on average make it. So it's like 500 people a year. So it is a very daunting
Right.
enterprise, to say the least. I don't recommend you wait until you're 72. I don't recommend that at all.
I was gonna ask that too. So I got a little bit information about you, but I know the listeners and the audience want to know who is Mr. Rand Timmerman Esquire. What's the scoop on you? I know you did some time in Vietnam and some time in the military. What's the background on Rand?
I grew up in Adams, New York, a very rural area in upstate New York. We're only about an hour from Ottawa, Canada, so we're way up north. More cows than people. It was very rural. My dad, actually, all the men in my family were warriors, pretty much World War II. And my dad was a Mustang pilot. Came home, married my mom, had me and my brother, got polio. Spent a year in the hospital, 8 months in iron lung, if you can imagine. Iron lung is a barrel. You lay in the barrel, your head sticks out, you can't breathe. He was paralyzed from the neck down. He ended up being paralyzed from the waist down. So I don't know what the medical bills, but they must have been impossible. Around 5 years old, I just looked around and I realized, that's when you become
Mm.
aware about 5. And I looked around, I
Right.
go, we're screwed. We're
Right.
screwed, man. My dad's standing there on crutches. It was Christmas Day. We had a tree with a couple bulbs on it, and there was a pedal wagon, a red pedal wagon underneath the tree that my dad had gotten from the dump. He sanded it down and painted it bright red, and that was the only present. And my little sister was 3. Her name is Linda, and she cried the whole day because she wanted a doll. And I'll never forget the look on my parents' face of just how life was treating us. And part of the byproduct of that for me was that I became a very disbeliever in the whole God thing. My brother, Ron, who liked the trail with me, actually pretty much spiritual his whole life. He and I have talked about that quite a bit, but I went the other way. I felt like if there was a God, he was punishing us. I did not understand it. I went to bed hungry a lot. I wore clothes that other people had worn out and shoes with holes in the bottoms. We ate dandelions and potatoes till
Uh-huh.
the cows came
That's
home.
true.
It was just, there was some good things about it too, though. My brother and I became pretty gritty guys. We both pretty solid men when we matured and so on. I learned real young I had a drinking problem. I knew that first time I drank alcohol at 13. I was like, "Woo, baby!" Uh, it took me on a real ride there that first time. The good news about that though was I realized my friend, I was 5'8", Kings, weighed 100 pounds. My
Wow.
buddy from across the street, whose mother was in a wheelchair with polio the rest of her life, weighed 200 pounds, and he was 5'8". And I found a bottle of Jim Beam in this basement where we were playing hide and seek, and took that first mouthful, and I'm like, "Yeah, how can anybody drink this stuff?" And
Right.
then that warm feeling went down through me.
Right.
And I just like, I got all of a sudden I'm 6'4", I'm 225 pounds, I'm all muscle, I'm all charm, I'm all sex appeal, I'm everything I ever wanted to be. And of course, we crawled home, but my dad was not happy with me the next day. But all he did was he said, "Just don't do that again, Butch." And I couldn't wait. The good part about it, Kings, was though that I made a decision to never do drugs.
Mm,
At 13 years old, after that, I said, "You know what? Why would I?" I
right.
mean, alcohol did everything I could
Right.
do. So anyway, that became part of my story, and the reason I bring it up is because in the book, I talk about how I recovered from alcoholism,
Yes.
uh, in my in my 60s, and, so anyway.
No, that's
Yeah,
good. So when I was
ups,
going
downs.
through the right, so when I was going through your book, these some things I was like, letting go of your ego and control, life transitions and meaning, mental clarity and stillness, leadership through inner growth. And that's, everything I share with you about my journey in life. I like, wow, that's why this book right here, this spiritual pattern, I say, wow, this textbook of knowledge is great. So my first question, what led you to write and put the collection of your book? And I was gonna ask, was this part of the Appalachian Trail? This photo right here?
Yeah. Yep, yep. Um, well, first of all, I didn't even think he could actually do it. My brother's wife had died, and that's what compelled us to go and he was gonna do it with or without me. My brother Ron was 71, and, his wife had died. That's enough. When he came back from Vietnam, uh, our mother's best friend was named Edie. She was 14 years older than my brother. My brother fell in love with her right away. First date they went on, she was divorced with 7 kids. The
Mm.
first date they went on, she showed up with the 3 youngest kids. Uh, I don't know. I didn't know what the heck he was doing, but man, they hit it off, and, he built a house, they got married, and, he ended up being involved in the Mormon church, moved to St. George, Utah, and my brother became a bishop in the Mormon church. He was a commercial pilot. He flew. Marine Corps damn near got me killed at least 20 times in Vietnam, and then by a fluke, I ended up being a JAG officer without a
Mm.
college education. I enlisted, so I was an E4 in Vietnam, and then they made me, you ever hear of Mustang Lieutenant?
And they
It's like a
commissioned you,
combat
right. They commissioned you right there on the spot.
Yep, they said, "We
Yeah.
need you to do some stuff for us." The other guy got killed, so it was kinda like that. In, World War II, they call them combat, lieutenants. So, I did that for a couple months, and then I was coming back, and this colonel came and saw me, and he said, "Well, you're gonna be you're a corporal again. You're not a second lieutenant. It was just temporary." "Yes, sir, I know that." "Well, you can go back and get out, or you can go to OCS, we'll make you a real lieutenant." Well, I didn't
Mm.
know what else. I didn't have anything else. So I said
Right.
I had to go up for 3 more years, and I ended up going to OCS in the basic school. And I decided I didn't wanna be a grunt anymore. I had been one of the 1st Marine Division, 1st Division to go into Vietnam. in 65. I was there at 66, 67. And decided being the 1st Marine Air Wing, which I had done a little bit of time with them as a machine gunner on a helicopter in Vietnam. And I thought, you know what, those guys got all the bennies. I'm going to go with the Air Wing. So, clean showers, food, all that kind of stuff that we didn't see hardly ever. So, and I got down to Cherry Point, my new duty station, and the officer of the day was a Mustang captain by the name of Dale Mones. And he had been my drill instructor, a staff sergeant in Paris Island,
Oh, wow.
2.5 years before that. So I get there, and I would have been a forward observer. That's what I was going to be. And they would have sent me back. And Dale said, well, I got a bunch of schools here, Rand. And he starts rallying them off, and he says, Newport, Rhode Island. And I go, I've never been to Newport, Rhode Island. What the heck is that? And he said, this is such a fluke. This is amazing how you're like, how the whole butterfly syndrome, butterfly beats the wind, and 10 days later there's a tornado, right?
Right.
Well, it's kind of like that. It was a naval judge advocate general school for legal officers. So next day I'm on my way to Newport, Rhode Island. I get there. I'm in a class with 100 of us. 99 of them are all captains with college degrees, law degrees, and admitted to the bar. And I don't even have a college education. And I'm a second.
Wow.
But I did get something about CMG, Uniform Code of Military Justice, because we were trained in it, as part of our enlisted training. And so I don't know, for whatever reason, some of these guys, I wanted to drink a lot, and I decided not to, and to try to work at it. And damn, got the highest scores. I was a class honor man. Pissed them all off. So I went back to Cherry Point. They made me a defense attorney for a couple of cases. One of them was guy was sleeping on watch in the Marine Corps was like a death knell, a couple of years for Leavenworth, and you were out. You were dishonorable discharge. And I had one of those, and I don't know, I put some witnesses on. You know how Corps marshals are. They're not your peers. It was like colonel, major, captain, lieutenants, whatever. And damn, they acquitted him. So then I had another one, not that bad, and then they decided to solve that problem. They made me a prosecutor.
So
and then they sent me. They kept sending me down the Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico, and every time I went down to Puerto Rico, I'd come back, and I was not at the top of the list to go back to Vietnam. I'm like, so I went and talked to Dale again. Now he was a major temporarily. When I left Cherry Point 2.5 years later, he was a gunnery sergeant again, and I was the 1st lieutenant. I was on the captain since I would have been a captain. So it was amazing. But what it did for me, Kings, is it gave me a career, man. I realized I liked it. I was pretty good at it. It was amazing. How do these things happen?
Right. Did you ever feel lost? Did you ever feel lost during your journey? Transition from I call it battlefield lieutenant to back to enlisted, and then now you're being sent off to the JAG Corps, and you went from the defense side to the prosecuting side. Did you ever feel that, like, just trying to get that identity? See, what were you like? Man, this is my niche right here. Did you ever feel lost during your journey?
Oh my God, yes. So when I came back from Vietnam, they sent us from Da Nang to Okinawa. And then they cleaned us all up, gave us all brand new uniforms. We're in winter greens because it's December, November, December of 1967. And I sat on the tarmac for two nights and 3 days in winter green uniform, waiting to get on an airplane along with a bunch of my buddies. And we sweat and everything. And it was, so finally everybody was getting on these planes and leaving but us. And so we were pretty upset. We finally got on a plane, flew to LA, 14-hour flight, whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
Get there. We went and got our tickets. I got a standby ticket. And then we all dispersed because we're all going to different gates, right? So now, for the first time in well over a year, I am by myself with no Marine buddies on standby trying to get home. Christmas Eve, and I went to the gate, and it was a long line, and I walked in the front and threw my duffel bag on the floor, put my ticket on the counter, and I said, "Lady, I am getting on this airplane. I'm getting on this airplane." Okay? This guy in the line comes up and starts poking me in the chest. Now he's like 6'4", 225-pound UCLA linebacker type guy, baseball hat on, poking me in the chest and, get to the back of the line and all this. And then he made a big mistake. He pushed me hard. And
Mm.
I'm 110
Eh,
pounds. I've lost 40
Talking about
pounds in Vietnam. I'm mean fighting machine, but
yeah.
I'm a skeleton, basically. Pushes me hard. I stagger backwards, almost fell down, and I'm standing behind these stanchions with the rope going through 'em,
Mm.
and I pulled the rope out of the end of the last one and picked it up like a baseball bat, and I'm gonna kill this guy. I lost my mind. You talk about mental health? Yeah, I got a big
Yeah.
problem right now. And I went at him, and the next thing I knew, I was surrounded by 4 stewardesses. One of them is taking the thing out of my hands, and the guy is surrounded by police. They put him on handcuffs on him and walk him out. And then the next thing I know, I'm in first class. I'm the first one on the plane,
Oh
and
wow.
this captain, listen to this. This captain comes up, sits with me in first class. The plane is starting to fill in. He starts talking to me, and it turns out he's a retired Marine Corps aviator from the Korean War,
Mm.
and he's saying,
Wow.
"See what happened? He took
Wow.
care of another
Yeah.
Marine, right?" Yeah.
Once a
Otherwise, I
Marine,
would have
yeah.
been the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, there's another butterfly moment, right?
Yeah. So what did you have to did you have to unlearn anything? Like, okay, like man, this is here's the transition, the break, trying to unlearn and as you move into your new phase.
Yeah, it was very hard at first. I had 30 days leave. The best part for me was I was going to OCS. I was going right
Mm,
back to a boot camp, only at a higher level. But otherwise, I don't know what had happened. A lot of the guys that I had served with, then they didn't make it, man. Alcohol, suicide, all kinds of stuff. It took years sometimes. But for me, I came back. I had met a girl the day before I went in the Marine Corps, and we had written letters, and I'm taking her out in the afternoon, the evening, and then I'm ditching her like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I'm meeting up with my buddies. Some of them were, a couple of them were Vietnam vets, a couple were Army vets, and we're doing, we're drinking our brains out and all that kind of stuff, running around. And I just remember, for me, one of the key moments, like transition, where I changed, because you walk around with grenades and all kinds of weapons for 13 months, day in and day out.
right,
There's always a spur of anxiety of what's going to go wrong next, because something's going to go. You don't know what or where or when, but it's
right.
going
You
to
know, so
happen.
right,
And then all of a sudden, you're in a military uniform, you're on an airplane, and then you're home,
right,
and you don't even feel like you feel like you're exposed because you don't even have a weapon, right?
right.
It's such a weird feeling. Well, both of us went to the old high school one day, and we were going to play tag football. Uh, this is in December in Adams, New York. It's very wintry up there, and anything can happen. And we took cases of beer, whiskey, and stuff, and we started playing. We played tag football for about 15 minutes, and then it just turned into smash mouth tackling. And a thunderstorm came through. I'll never forget it, Kings. A thunderstorm came through. Then it started snowing. We're all bleeding. I might even have another broken nose for all I know. The snow is covered with dots of blood, and we're drinking our brains out. And I had never felt so better in my whole life. The
Yeah,
exhilaration that we felt was just, we're free, we're home, we're alive. I just like, oh my God, I made it.
yeah,
That was one of those moments.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like re-identify your identity and purpose again, right? To okay, hey, we're back home. Like, how do people reconnect with their purpose, right? Because this is like you just trying to reestablish yourself, right? Because you say you was out and then you came back and then now you're trying to reintegrate yourself with society, right? So how do people reconnect with their purpose?
Well, in those days, there wasn't much the military didn't really help us that
Mm,
much. It was kinda I got down to Cherry Point, like I said, I ended up being a JAG officer. I did another 2 years doing that. It was pretty sad in many ways. I would see guys coming in, they'd have a chest full, I mean, real heroes, real solid men, chest full of medals. They'd go on leave. They'd go down to Myrtle Beach or, the Outer Banks or somewhere. They'd get a motel
mhm,
for 30 days. They'd get all the things they wanted, and then they'd get drunk, and then they'd forget, come back until, like, 34 days, and then the Marine Corps would prosecute them for being AWOL, and the next thing you know, they're walking around as a PFC, and it was horrible.
yeah,
It was horrible. There was no programs. Nobody understood PTSD. It hadn't even been invented yet. Uh, so, I didn't like that, but I didn't end up going back to Vietnam. I married that girl. She provided me with, 3 beautiful daughters. We came back to Syracuse, New York when I got out. I went to, college, got my degree, got my law degree, and for a long time, I thought, "This is kinda weird because I seem to be alright." I was
right.
really busy. I was driven to succeed. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be successful. I did not wanna be poor anymore, and
Right.
seemed like everything was working out for me, and then I started having these horrific nightmares. First one I had was unbelievable. You talk about transitioning and trauma and all that, and you talked about some trauma before the show you saw as a EMT, and I mean, I salute you, man. That's a tough job for sure, MP jobs and all that stuff, and Um, you know, I one night, I was back in Vietnam. I'm
Mm,
back I'm right back, it's right the way it was, and in the middle of a battle, I can smell the gun smoke, I can smell the gore, uh, all of a sudden, I get sliced wide open, and I'm sitting on the ground, I'm
oh,
trying to put my guts back inside of me, and I'm thinking, this time I'm not gonna go to a hospital ship. This
right,
time I'm dead, right?
right.
You can't survive that. See, I had gone on a mission. I was on a part of a what they called a reaction platoon, and we went on a mission one time, and we ran out of ammo, and I had used my bayonet to survive. And so I don't know. Anyway, I had that dream where now I'm the one that gets dying from being bayoneted, and I'm screaming, and all of a sudden, I'm bathed in white light, and I open my eyes, and I'm not in Vietnam, I'm in my bed, and my wife is laying on the floor, and she had just reached up and turned the light switch on, and that's where the white light came from, and I'm not
Mm,
covered in blood, I'm covered in sweat, but I am smelling gore, urine, and manure because I voided
yeah.
myself. The bed is full of my
Oh,
crap, and I just remember her and I looking at each other and thinking, "This is not good. This is not good. You're not okay, Rand. You're not
uh,
okay." And then I had another one, falling out of a helicopter, which I had that happened to me in a battle, and, I survived, obviously. I landed on the skid, but by a miracle, and I got back in the helicopter with the help of the other gunner, but so I ended up having these nightmares, and of course, my old buddy alcohol, right?
mm,
I would put the kids to bed, I'm working hard, I became a lawyer, I went out on my own but I started drinking heavily at nighttime. I put the kids to bed, my wife would go to bed, and I would, like, pound it for an hour,
I
right?
was straight, yeah.
And then
Wow.
yeah, then I'd go to bed, and I'd wake up at 5 o'clock. I was self-employed, I had a bunch of people working at me at various times and stuff like that, and pretty successful. I was driven, but I always had that angst, I guess you'd say, and I knew that alcohol could be a problem. Whenever it started to be like a problem, I would stop for a while, so I had the illusion of control. But if you're a real alcoholic, which I am, I admit that now, um,
Yeah.
you you're gonna need some help eventually, and that's what happened to me. I needed help,
Mm,
but it wasn't until I got my late 50s, early 60s it really became a problem. And I ended up in a recovery program, and I didn't make it at first because I wasn't willing to do the God thing. See, my brother Ron always had
mm,
his spiritual power, and he and I talked about that a lot, hiking the trail,
yeah.
Kings, and
And
I wasn't like that. I was like,
I was gonna ask you, what does the spiritual play in your life today? Like definitely, being out on the trail. Because I tell people, once you go out in the woods, so I'm from the city. You from New York State. I'm down in New York City, so it's a little bit different, right? I tell people it's different, but when you're out there in the woods and you just have you, yourself, and your thoughts, and you're just going through and you can have communication with yourself, right? So what does the faith play in your life today? Definitely with experiencing trauma when you was in the military and then going through when you was a lawyer and stuff, all that is coming back, right? Because that's why I take the when you went on the trail, addressing all those issues that you came across when you was younger and moving through, that you shared in the book.
yes. Well, so what happened for me was I did end up in a recovery program. I actually retired from work because I didn't want to destroy my career with some bad decisions like drinking and driving and stuff like that.
Mm,
And then I struggled in the recovery program, but I finally got a really good sponsor. And the program I was in was a spiritual program. And when I hit my bottom, he took me to the hospital and spent the whole day with me in the emergency room. And I finally just gave up. I told him I
mm,
would do whatever he told me to do, and, he got me out of detox 4 days later, and we went to a meeting, and after the meeting, he said, "Brand, you need to pray to that God you don't believe in," and I started to argue with him, Kings, and he
mm,
said, "Or you will be broke again," and that was the moment of my spiritual journey, right then,
mm.
because I knew he was telling me the truth. I just gave up. I said, "You're right. I don't." I started crying, Kings. I'm a man.
Yeah,
I hadn't cried in decades, and I'm crying,
right.
and I'm saying, "I don't even know how to pray." All this time, all these meetings, 2,000 meetings by then, I'd read what they call the Big Book 5 times. I knew a
Mm,
lot about alcohol. I understood that it was it's an allergy. In 1956, the American Medical Association declared it's a disease because alcoholics process alcohol differently. Our bodies do. We
mm,
metabolize it differently. It's not a moral shortcoming. It's a physical ailment that causes you to lose your mind and you become obsessed with alcohol. It's because of the acetone. Our bodies create more acetone. And then a normal
mm,
person starts to create acetone. They're going to stop because they're starting to feel sick. Alcoholic creates acetone and they start to get really, really thirsty. And that's where that thirsty feel. I could be on a 3 or 4 day jag drinking cherry vodka pretty much noon, morning to night
non-stop, right,
and and then wake up in the middle of the night and I'm thirsty. I gotta have a drink. I don't know if you can relate to that, but
right.
yeah, it tore me up at the end, and then by the time we hiked the trail, I had 4 years sober, and I was helping other men. So I had already
Mm,
started my recovery. I had become a spiritual person, uh, but I learned a lot. Like you were talking about, there's a lot of, um, being regrown, rebirthed when you go into the nature, when you're in
yeah,
nature and all that. I had done a fair amount of hiking in the Smoky Mountains and other parts of the actually on the Appalachian Trail, not intentionally, but it just worked out that way. I had done I things would become too much for me, and I would grab a pack, and I would go in the woods, and I would just go 3 or 4 days by myself. And, I did fake charges with wild bears and all this stuff, climbing mountains and enjoying the beauty and just the peace and being by myself and feeling the adrenaline of all that kind of, stuff. So I had that. I ran 26 marathons. My brother
nice.
ran some marathons. He did a ton of hiking. We were actually both in much better shape than most men our
Mm,
age. So in that respect, we had maintained something that a lot of people don't have, that vitality. I mean, at 72, I was probably in the shape of a man in his 50s that really worked at it because I worked at
right,
it every day, you know what
every
I
day.
mean? Yeah, I ran
So
every day for years and years and years. I figured if I ran 3 to 30 miles a day, I could drink as much as I want because I
right,
couldn't possibly be an
compensate,
alcoholic.
right? What practices helped you find peace? Like, what practice did you, besides going on a 3 to 4 day hiatus, you go out there? Like, what practices helped you find peace in your life journey?
During my mature adult years when I was like I said, I was very good. I like being a lawyer. I was a litigator. I was in court every
Mm.
day. You know, you get that adrenaline rush. Um, I got along well with everybody. Judges like me, clients like me. I never got grieved. Litigators normally get grieved all over the place. But I ran every morning. You know, today I'd say my prayers every morning and then I go walk 3 miles before daylight usually. In those days, you know, if you're in the service like you were, I don't know about you, but you just get used to getting up at four
Yeah,
o'clock in the morning,
crack of
right?
dawn. That's it. Yep. Get up before everybody. Yep. For
Yeah,
the
and
rooster
I always
crows,
did
you up and
something.
moving.
Yep, moving. I would be in the office hours before anybody else, getting everything organized, people giving them things to do so I could be prepared during the day in court and stuff like that. I ran with a bunch of guys at noontime for many years. We call ourselves the Iroquois Warriors because the Iroquois Confederacy was in upstate New York. So, like, I'm in Syracuse. This is Onondaga County. That's an Indian tribe, Onondaga County, right?
Wow.
And the lakes are all Seneca Lake is a that's an Iroquois. Those are Indian Native American names. So we're really fulfilled with that. But anyway, I would run with a bunch of guys. I don't know. I stayed in pretty
Mm,
good shape, but I did drink too much at times for sure. And I knew it was going to be a problem, and it was. In the end, it got me. When I couldn't run anymore, that's when it really.
mm,
Now my tools or my toolkit that kept me going all the time. You know, s- eating healthy, running every day. Yeah, I'm drinking too much, but I was working hard. I never drank during the day for most of that. Uh, Stuff, so I don't know. But then at the end,
mm.
if you're a real alcoholic, like I said, spiritus became my god. Spiritus is Latin for alcohol in a
Right.
bottle. That was my god. Yeah, that was the one
Yeah.
that damn near killed me, but then when I started praying every day, I've been doing it now for 12 years. I'll be 12 years May 6th
Nice.
right
And that's
now.
all part of the
Yep.
transformation, right? So, with transformation, some things you have to let go to grow, right? And that's what I have to tell myself to it. If I want to transform, you talk about the butterfly as well, right? The butterfly started from something else, right? Before it turns into a butterfly, you have to be that evolving transformation. So, what did you have to let go to grow? So you minimize alcohol. Like, what else did you have to let go? Like, man, you need to go to the next level. Okay, you have to let this go. What is something that you could share that was in the book with the listeners and readers when they get a copy of this book that you talked about? In order for you to grow, you have to let some stuff go.
I had to let my pride and ego go,
Mm,
and I had to be willing to accept the fact that I could not. My awesome willpower that made me run all those miles and all those marathons and all that other good stuff, when it came to alcohol, was I was powerless, and it made me unmanageable for sure. That's the
mm,
first step in the program. So what happened for me was I just started praying to that God, and I gave up. I'm I let Him see. What we learn in our
ah,
program is that, well, we have this willpower. I had the ability to focus on something and carry it out to the end, right? Which
right,
is why I could hike the Appalachian Trail. You gotta have that grit, that determination. I had that, but my problem was I was misaligning it because I wasn't aligning it with God's will that I don't drink alcohol.
right.
When Billy
It's
started
that
working
one
with me,
thing.
he goes, "When I'm praying to this God," he said, "What are you praying for?" And I said, "I don't know. I think God will you don't drink alcohol, Rand. You're an alcoholic. Maybe that's God's will for you. Now you take your
Mm,
willpower and you align it with God's will because you have willpower. You can do amazing things when you put your mind to it. So you're going to use that willpower to do God's will and not drink alcohol. And how do you do that? You pray to Him every day. You ask Him to help you not
right,
pick up that drink. You go to a meeting every day. You share with other men and women that are trying to stay sober. You read the literature, you help other men, you make the phone calls, you answer the damn phone if somebody calls you and says, "I need your help," right?
right.
And I've been doing all those things for almost 12 years, and the obsession lifted probably after 6 months. And,
Wow.
after the year when I got through the 12 steps, I just start one day a guy asked me to be his sponsor,
Sponsor,
and I'm
right,
like, "Oh, yeah," and I write
uh,
about this in the book. In the
right.
book, that's why it's called a spiritual passage, right? And then my brother's
Right.
spirituality too, which yeah. So, And I explained how I got sober, and anyway, this guy asked me to be his sponsor, and he's gonna be my sponsee and I did what Billy always said, I said, "Come back tomorrow," 'cause a lot of times they don't, right?
Right.
So that way you find out if there's sinc
If they
but I
serious,
had a
right?
different reason, okay, so I needed to go talk to Billy.
Yeah.
I went to talk to Billy, and I said, "You won't believe what happened. This guy asked me to be his sponsor," excuse me, and Billy goes, "Oh, yeah. Well, that's good, man. Go for it." I go, "Billy, you're supposed to tell me I'm not ready." And he goes, "Rand, you're ready.
You're
You
ready.
got a lot of bad experience.
Right.
Now you got
I
some good experience,
yeah,
you
I
know?"
know one thing
And it
when I was
changed my
reading through
life.
the book, it did, it changed your life, and then when I was going through the book, it was like, wow, living intentionally, you know, you said that in the book, you have to live intentionally, like, with the now that I have you on here to instead of the written form, like, I wanna hear from Rand, what does it mean living intentionally really means? I know what it says in the book, but I wanna get your thoughts so the listeners can hear what it means to live intentionally means.
But to live intentionally is means that I'm going to try to be the man that God always wanted me to be. And
Mm,
how do I do that? In our program, we talk about we trudge the road of happy destiny. Okay. Well, it's not a destiny. That's just the name of the road. But trudge means to walk with purpose. So it's just like
mm,
being in the Marine Corps. You're going to go on a mission. We're going to start marching. You're going to march with purpose, right?
right,
So when you're intentionally trying to be sober and be the man that God wanted you to be, i.e., a sober man,
right.
then you're going to trudge that road. You do those things intentionally every day, and then you won't have to drink again. And you can, and what happens, Kings, is that all your other, we talk about character defects and on in the steps, we work on those things because if we still are full of regret, guilt, shame, and remorse. I did some pretty despicable things when I was drunk. You know what I mean?
Mm,
That causes guilt, shame, and remorse. I had regret. I had resentments. I had a resentment against poverty. That was a good one because that drove me,
right,
right? But a lot of
right.
times resentments are people, places, and things, and they will hurt you and they will keep you drunk. So I have to work on my character defects. I ask God to take away my difficulties, so that I may bear witness to those I may seek to help of thy power, God's power, and love, and that I may do thy will always, which is to not drink alcohol, help other people.
Mm,
And that's what I do. And I have joy in my life now, Kings.
right.
I had joy
Wow.
every day.
Congrats. Congrats. Hey,
Yeah.
you know, Rand, I'm about to take it off script right here. So, what's something you never said out loud about your journey? Because you know, like some things that we might keep, but why I'm asking is, you know, when I shared with you before we hit record, it took me a while for me to share my journey and story with anybody. And then I say, you know what, Rand, I have to because I know it can help somebody. It might not resonate everything, but just this, whatever little piece that will lock in with them, I need to share my story. But it took me a while. So, what's one thing that you never said out loud about your journey that you say, you know what, I'm comfortable with sharing it now so others can see I made it through?
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with sharing most of my stories now. You know, about 2 years ago, I was 10 years sober. I'm helping a lot of men, but I
Mm,
realized I'd kind of put myself into a cell where I was isolating a lot and
mm,
still worried about some of the trauma from the Vietnam War. And I joined a veterans writing workshop. I was actually at a meeting with these guys today, and we started writing. And I started out writing some of the things that you know, there's a part of my brain that you don't want to go into without a shotgun and a flashlight. You know what I'm saying?
right, right, right.
There's a lot of
That's true.
there's a lot of manure back there, and grenades and TNT and all kinds of bad
Right.
stuff. Um, Today, I don't talk about the war much with, certainly not with anybody that's not a veteran because
Mm,
they can't possibly understand
right.
that. But I have to share it with other people if it helps them. But I'm still very reluctant to talk about some of that stuff. The guys in World War II,
Mm,
I had 2 uncles that were World War II veterans, my dad, those guys never talked about it, ever. And when I came back from Vietnam, this is part of my trauma, Kings, that I never talked
mm,
about it was because when I was home on that leave before going to OCS, I was with my dad. We're going out to the airport. He had a plane, and I started telling him about one of my misadventures in Vietnam, and he started yelling at me, "Don't talk about it, Butch. It's you got to bury that in the back of your brain. You're home. You're safe now." And I'm thinking, I'm not safe. I'm going to be a second lieutenant and go back as a forward observer. That's not, but
Right.
and so I'm thinking, he's a veteran. I can talk, and my dad's yelling at me, "No, you got to bury it in the back of your brain, blah, blah, blah." Next thing I know, he's hit me over the head with a chart like I'm 12 years old again. I'm like, "Man, I'm a combat veteran. My dad's treating me like I'm 12 years." I don't know. For whatever reason, I never talked about it again. I
Mm,
just said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm not doing it." And so I
right.
carried all that, and it's only been the last couple of years I've been able to write some stuff about it. I wrote a article that was published in Consequence Forum magazine. I don't know if you've heard of that,
Mm,
about
wow.
the effects of war and stuff like that. But anyway, so there's not too
Mm,
much I won't share today. To be honest,
yeah.
if I think it will help somebody, I'm not gonna share stuff that's gonna hurt people. I
Right.
don't wanna do any more harm. I do.
What does w- one what does silence teach? Right? Because for a long time I was silent about um my hardship. I was very I was silent. I'll say I was silent out loud, but inside these between these two ears was so loud. It was screaming the way I wanted to cover my ears.
Yeah, the way you feel. I
Yeah.
understand that. You were talking before about trying to save a child's life with CPR,
Yeah.
and I said to you, I can relate to that. I spent an hour and a half on my knees doing CPR on a guy until the real EMTs got there, and, uh, and he didn't make it. I was devastated. I was
Yeah.
devastated. I thought, "Damn," just like you said, Kings, I thought, "I did something wrong. I must have not been doing the breathing right. Maybe I wasn't doing it the right, whatever. I wasn't doing the
Right.
compression properly. I don't know." I was so upset that I ended up talking to the doctors in the emergency room where he ended up, and, they said,
There's nothing you could do.
no, he was
Mm,
too far gone. Too far gone." He said, that "You kept him alive, but as soon
mm,
as he had no more support, he died. He was not gonna make it no matter what." Most people don't realize only about 10% of the people that have heart attacks in the hospital survive,
wow.
right? Yeah, it's very low percentage. So if you're out on your own, it's like, I don't know, it's very low percentage people that actually survive with CPR, but sometimes they do. That's great. But
Uh,
yeah, so you and I are the type of man where we take our duties, very sincerely, and we're very conscientious. And then when things don't go right, we tend to blame ourselves and we shut down, and that's not good, right?
yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
that's what you told me.
yeah. And I know for me, I had to let go of my ego. You know, what broke me, I kept putting that mask on, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm okay, everything is okay. But when I was inside, I was in shambles. But the outside, it was the face, like the mask.
Yep,
It's that
absolutely.
ego. And when I read through your book, he's like, man, you have to let go of that ego. It's like it's okay to cry. I remember you shared that in your book before we hit recording. You said it earlier, like I didn't know what it was like because I thought it was like the not the macho thing to do, like yeah, man, no cry this and that, But it's if you have to release that energy some way, shape, or form. If not, it's gonna be keep building up, and sooner or later it's gonna explode. So I call it
Yeah,
a pressure release valve.
yeah. And that's what hiking the trail was for me. The
Mm.
one thing I didn't say about that was that I didn't think we could do it. So when I wrote the first version of the book, I took 6,000 pictures.
Yes.
I mean, my my brother was in such grief and everything. He was kind of like marching. I mean, there was days where he would take note. He was kind of heads down, boom, 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 right? And I was more like I'm never gonna go this way again. I'm 72 years old.
Stop.
I'm
Right.
never walking up the street,
Right.
right? And I would go around the corner and I go, "Oh my god, look at that." And I would take a picture. How many days where I took 40 or 50 pictures?
Yeah.
So
The
for
book
me, it
shows
was
it.
like,
Your book shows it, and I love it because I love pictures. I like, man, if I could just be there just to smell the trees, just to smell the air, just to hear the animals moving around the forest, just and just I call it freezing time.
"Yep,
I like to
yeah,
freeze time.
sure." I can relate to that. Yeah, it was I walked around the corner one day and there was the biggest bear I have ever seen in my life is coming right towards me. He's walking down the trail and I come around the corner and he is like 15 feet away from me. And this is a black
Whew.
bear and he is huge. His head is like a bowling ball. And he's looking right at
Wow.
me with his brown eyes
Oh,
and he's
snap.
got one foot is he's frozen and he's in mid step. So he's got one paw on the ground, the other one's halfway down, right? And he's staring at me and I'm staring at him and
Oh,
he's like
snap.
15 feet away. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful. And I'm shaking, right? His fur was so black. It was the blackest black I have ever seen in my life. It just glowed. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get a picture. So I reached behind me
Oh my
underneath my
goodness.
pack, get my iPhone, right? I had an iPhone 7. I was taking all these pictures on, and I bring it around. I bring it up in front of me, and he just whirled and ran down that trail so fast. If he had wanted to get me, I would have had no chance.
No
No,
chance.
no spurt in him, no nothing, right?
Uh,
But he did, and he went down the trail, and then he went off the side of the mountain. And I mean, it sounded like a bulldozer going down the mountain. Trees, it sounded like trees are flying and rocks and
Wow.
everything. And this other hiker walks up behind me and he goes, "Rand, what's that?" He called me Rambo because that was my trail name.
Yeah.
And he said, "Rambo, what's that?" I said, "That's a bear." And he goes, "No way." I said, "Yes, that was a
Yes.
bear. And it was a big bear." And we stood there and listened to it for like 30 seconds just going down that mountain, just making a terrible racket. It was unbelievable. It
And
was
it's
unbelievable. Stuff like
no,
that,
so
man.
yeah, so and for the ones who haven't seen the book yet, so Rand, like, he has pictures like this, and I mean, like, majority of the book, like, every couple of pages is screenshots. Time that's frozen. Here's some of the things I took away when I was going through the book. It's like your journey begins when you look within. And Rand, these are some of the things, and I like to share with the authors, or when I go through a book, I kind of envision my journey, my life journey, and integrate
Sure.
myself into the book, right? So peace comes from under, and I'm sure when I share these these words with you, you're like, okay, I can see that, because I like to share my story and journey before we hit the record button, so you understand where I'm coming from. Peace comes from understanding. Let go to grow. Clarity comes in silence. You are not your past, and this band right here. So I went to do a speaking engagement for Air Force Wounded Warrior program. I'm a Air Force Wounded Warrior ambassador, and this young man gave me this. I call it my power band. So in the power band, he took it off his wrist to give it to me because I shared my story. He said, "Man, I went through something similar. I thought it was just me." So it says, this band says, "I haven't taken it off my wrist yet. Demons are behind me, and so is the past. I keep it on my wrist."
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, yesterday is a canceled check. Tomorrow is, the future, and if you are keeping your head where your feet are, then you're just pissing all over today. You know,
Yeah,
it's another way to look at it. I don't do that. I live for the moment as much as I can. You have to
yeah,
plan and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, my mantra is kind of one step at a time. No matter
yeah.
what the problem is that we're dealing with, we can break it down and figure out what can I do right now and just do that. A lot of times it's
Living
helping
moment.
other people.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
this right here
one
is
step at a
helping.
time.
And this conversation right here is helping other people because it helped me. I know when others are gonna get a copy of your book, listen to the podcast, and I want readers and listeners to take away from your book right here is spiritual passage. For me, it means life journey, right? The way how you
Right.
broke it down with photos and explanations and storylines. I challenge people to get a copy of the book because you'll see your storyline in the book. You'll see your story and journey. You're on your own trail. Like I don't. My brain is kind of wired differently after I got zapped so many times, man. So when I read people book and I'm like, man, I'm on my own Appalachian Trail. Like I'm seeing bears and I'm, wondering if I'm gonna get lost or turned around. But I got somebody that's walking with me. We in it together. We step by step. He wants to get the point from
Right.
A to B so quick, but I want to stop. I want to take pictures. I want to freeze time. I want to, I want to enjoy the moment. And that's exactly what
That's
your
right.
book showed and displayed and captured. So I just want to say thank you. How can they get a copy of your book? How can they like reach out? Like I said, this book is wonderful. Wonderful. Close to 400 pages.
Actually,
But
yeah. Well, what we did was Ronnie kept very good records of where we went every day from where to where. So somebody could actually, by reading the book, can visualize what it's like to hike the Appalachian Trail because we talk about where we were,
right.
where we went, what mountains we went over, and then there's pictures showing the best
Along the
of what we
way.
saw each day.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can actually, in your mind, you could read it, see some of the pictures, say, "Oh my God, that's where that was," and so on and so forth. And then every other chapter, I would write about my recovery or Ronnie's spiritual growth and stuff like that. So yeah, it's amazing story, and I think almost everybody can relate to it in one way or another.
Yes.
And the message, be inspired by other people's accomplishments, and then look at yourself and say, you know what, I can do more than what I'm doing right now. I can take one step at a time. I can go and help somebody, or I can do this a little bit better maybe than not be lackadaisical and stuff like that. That's what I'm hoping. I know it's helped people. I know it's helped people in recovery because, I mean, hey, if a guy like me can get
Right.
sober
Yeah.
and then go
Anybody
on a
can.
long walk and do all this other stuff,
Yeah.
anybody can do it, man.
Right. Thank you for that. So how can they get in contact with you? Is there a website or a
Yep,
place that they could go?
my website is just my name, randtimmerman.com. That's it. And my email is rand.timmerman@gmail.com. But I tell you what, if you put my name in on Google or Safari or whatever, stuff pops up.
Right.
And if you put in, believe it or not, if you put a spiritual passage, it takes you right to my book. So either my
Nice.
website, rand.com, my email, rand.timmerman@gmail.com, or just go on the internet and you'll see it.
Awesome.
And
Thank you so
modern
much.
technology also.
Yes. That's it.
Yep, thank
That
you.
search engine optimization verbiage.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rand, for coming on the VET S.O.S network here. Definitely sitting on the stoop, getting the scoop of the spiritual passage with your journey, with your brother. Thank you for sharing your story. Remember, to all our listeners and viewers, you don't have to drown in the sea of transition. Grab that VET S.O.S Lifeline. We're here to help. And I tell people, what is that transition? You transition every day from one day to the next. You could be transitioned from one job to the next. You could transition from your car into your house, from your house into your bed. Everything is a transition. Just take it one day
That's
at a
right.
time. Rand said, enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment.
Yes,
Freeze
sir.
time so you could go back and you could look at the times, right? You could remember, like, man, I remember I came from that, or I remember I experienced that,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
So thank
Good
you so
advice.
much, Rand, and thank you for your service. Thank you for leading the way and putting this collection together to share with others. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Kings. I appreciate it too. Salute.
Thank you, everybody. Until next time, take care.